My friends at Easy Cater are workplace catering pros, helping you find food for everything from daily employee meals to staff meetings and special events. Visit easycater.com/leaderassistant to find out more.
I'm Mallory Rothstein. Today's leadership quote comes from Oprah Winfrey. Real integrity is doing the right thing, knowing that nobody's going to know whether you did it or not.
The Leader Assistant podcast exists to encourage and challenge assistants to become confident, game-changing leader assistants.
Thank you for listening to the Leader Assistant podcast.
Here's your host, my dad.
Hey friends, thanks for tuning in. I hope you're having a good holiday season. I'm excited to share my interview today, but first I wanted to let you know that my Amazon Kindle ebook version of The Leader Assistant, 4 Pillars of a Confident, Game-Changing Assistant, my #1 Amazon best-selling book that released earlier this year, I've discounted the Kindle version of the book to $3.49 USD. It's typically $6.99, I think is what it was for full price. So just wanted to put it for the whole month of December at this price so that you could get it as a digital stocking stuffer for your assistant friends and colleagues. Or if you already have the physical book or the audio book, maybe you wanted to grab the Kindle version as well so you can refer to it on your either Kindle device or your Kindle app. You don't have to have a Kindle to access a Kindle book, in case you didn't know that. You can access it from your browser, through your Amazon account, or through the app on your device, like your iPad or your Google Pixel phone or whatever you have. So go to amazon.leaderassistant.com to get the book for half price for this month of December for the holiday season. And you can actually order multiple digital copies and they will send you a promo code to share with people to be able to download it for free. So you can just go in amazon.leaderassistant.com, select add to cart, or I think you have to select the quantity of the Kindle version that you would like, and then you can go pretty high. I'm not sure what the max is. I've known people who have bought 40 copies of the digital book, and then they get 40 promo codes that they can send out for people to download the book. So check it out. Really appreciate all your support. I know several of you have bought the discounted Kindle version for your entire executive assistant and admin team at your company. I really appreciate it. Hopefully it's very helpful and valuable to you. But again, you can find that discount for just $3.49. You can get the digital Kindle version of the book at amazon.leaderassistant.com. So happy holidays, enjoy the discount, and enjoy this interview. Hey everyone, thanks for tuning in to the Leader Assistant podcast. It's your host, Jeremy Burrows, and today I'm speaking with Mallory Rothstein. Mallory is an administrative business partner at Google, and she's also a TEDx speaker and host of a weekly Instagram Live series called Peace Over Panic. Mallory, how's it going?
It is good. I'm definitely having a busy but good week.
Great. So we're going to jump right in. You've got a couple of interesting stories that you told me about that I'd love to have you share. One of them was you said you were speaking at a nonprofit gala and you essentially got an EA job because of that opportunity and that speaking gig. So could you tell us about that story?
Yeah, so when I graduated college in 2015, I was looking for social media jobs, thinking that I was going to be a social media manager because I love social media. And I really at the end goal wanted to be a CEO, but I was like, I don't have my big idea yet. And I was really involved with this nonprofit called Miracle Corners of the World, who asked me to give a 5-minute brief speech. And I ended up going up on stage, making some stupid joke and totally thinking that I bombed this speaking engagement. I remember like getting off the stage and telling my partner at the time, like, I'm not even going to go to the reception. Like, I'm so embarrassed. And I end up going to the reception, and I'm just like walking around, and I see this guy, Stanley Bergman, who has seriously like 50 people waiting to speak with him. And we make eye contact, and I'm like, just smiling. And he comes running up to me, and he's like, hey, I'm Stanley Bergman, and I run this company. And I'm just thinking like, okay, like, what do you want to do with me? You have like 50 people waiting for you. And he's just like, I know you know my son. Like, I've heard great things about you. I loved your speech. Do you want to come work for me? And I was like, what? And he asked me, do you have a passport? And what are you doing with your life? That was actually his first thing before he said, will you come work for me? And I just told him, I was like, I'm getting rejected from jobs, and I do have a passport. And he just was like, come work for me. And then he said, and I was like, I don't really know. Like, I'm like, okay. And then he said, send me your values and your resume by the end of tonight. And I didn't know of him. I knew his son because his son ran this nonprofit. But yeah, like, I literally interviewed, or I got contacted by the recruiter the next day. The following day, I went to the office to interview with the rest of the office. And then 2 weeks later, I was one of his, he called it an associate, and I traveled all over with him as one of his EAs. So I was not planning on being an assistant at all, which is, I think, a lot of people's story. But that was kind of my starting in the EA world.
So how long have you been an assistant now?
So it has been 5 years. So I'm still even young in my career. But yeah, so it's been 5 years.
Awesome. So how did you get the speaking gig? And apparently you've done TEDx speaking. So how does that all come together? And do you have any tips for people who want to do more speaking?
Yeah, of course. So when I was really young in high school, I was very, very I did not like to speak at all. And I was very nervous. I mean, I still get nervous, but I was so against public speaking. And then in college, I basically told myself every single opportunity you have to say yes to get good at it. And so for this nonprofit, I had volunteered, and they just asked me, and I just decided to say yes. And then for the TEDx talk, which I just gave this last year, I really just applied. I looked online how to give a TEDx talk. I went to one webinar that gave some tips on it. I made a list of all the different TEDx events that were in the next year. And I decided to just start applying to them. I applied to 7, and I heard back from 1. And it's crazy because I heard back from 1, and it was the one that I did not think was my best application. And it was the one that was a month away. So it ended up being fine. And I tell actually a lot of other assistants that speaking is such a great opportunity to just, establish your own personal brand, to even build credibility within your own organization and with your executives. And for anyone that's looking for speaking opportunities, I always tell them to just start small, to start something of your own. My Instagram Live that I had started was really just for me to get comfortable being on a live platform and to be okay with being on video. And so just start small, start asking people if they know of any opportunities. And I would say the biggest thing too, for me, now I kind of have a pregame routine on what I do before each speaking engagement that kind of makes it easier for me going into them. Even before, us doing this podcast, I have a pregame routine now.
What's part of your routine?
So I always tell myself, you got this. I always go to the bathroom, and I always drink just one sip of water, and I usually listen to a song. That's all part of it.
Nice.
Yeah.
So tell us about the kind of more of your side hustle, if you will, called Learn What Matters. And I guess you do professional development with high schoolers. Is that right?
Yeah, I do. I do a lot of personal development with high schoolers and coaching. And essentially what it is all about helping high school students understand the term self-awareness and personal development, and kind of help them become really crystal clear on who they are outside of grades, standardized test scores, like really just who they are at the core. And then what are their goals? Where do they want to be? And how do they come up with a plan to help them get there? There's so many different resources for students on SATs and, study habits and things like that. But I really believe that all of those things are important. But if a student doesn't know who they really are and what their strengths are, they're not going, I believe, to do their best on the SATs, to get into the best career, to find the best partner. And so I really just try to help teens and coach them through that, and then help high schools build strong alumni programs. And then I started a scholarship at my high school to help students invest in their personal development.
How did you end up kind of getting into that? Is this something that you've always been passionate about? Is there something that kind of triggered that?
Mm-hmm. So when I joined Google, which is now 4 years ago, I was, after my job working for Henry Schein with Stan Bergman, that job was really crazy. Like, I tell him all the time, I'm like, he knows. I'm like, that job took a lot out of me. I moved to California, and I was just saying to myself, like, I'm just going to kind of take it easy. I'm going to have one job. I'm going to just have fun outside of work and not think of 1,000 other things to do. And then, of course, like 7 months later, I just had something happen into my life where I had to like cut someone off. And I thought that my purpose was very much with them. And I was like, wait, when this person isn't in my life, what do I do? And I sat in a conference room and I put away my phone, my laptop, and I just started asking myself, like, what makes me happy? And as I started writing all these things down, it was like coaching, youth development, like the people that I was writing down were like people that were like team coaches, and everything I did was like traveling and all this kind of stuff. And I said to myself, man, I really want to work with young people. Two, I wondered if high school students knew to like ask themselves these types of questions, and then came up with the idea from Learn What Matters, like really right in that moment. And a lot of it is really inspired also just by my experience in high school and middle school, and how I got through, certain struggles and things that I was going through, and really wanting to provide something that I wish I had in high school. So that's kind of more of the background on that.
So you have this passion to help high schoolers with personal development. You do speaking, but you're also full-time administrative business partner at Google. How do you balance your side hustle with your day job? And is your Google executive and team okay with you having a side hustle?
Yeah. So when I take it back to when I first started working with Stan, I told him and his office straight up, I will not be an assistant forever. Like, if you're looking for someone who wants to be a career admin until they retire, it's not going to be me. And I'm definitely not staying at this company more than probably 5 years the max. And I've always been really honest with every single executive that I've worked with during the interview process to set the expectations that I'm not a career admin forever. I want to start my own business, and like, I'm here to learn from you. And so all of my executives, all of my teams, they know my projects, like, and they know what I'm doing. There's no secret. And when people ask me like, well, what did they say? Like, what is their like, are they shocked, or like, why did they hire you? Because my thing with them is I always tell them, I will be the best admin that they've ever had and experienced. And I will make sure that my side hustles never affect like them, and it will only contribute and make me as a as an assistant better and make them better through my network, through things that I learned doing a side hustle. So I've never personally had any issues from it. In terms of balancing, I try to tell people, like, I don't have a partner, I don't have kids. I also now live away from my family, which cuts out a lot of things that a lot of other people deal with. So I think it makes things a little bit easier to balance. I like to put that out there. But anytime that I do, like I did a podcast today earlier, and I know, okay, if I'm taking an hour out of my day, one, I usually let my executives know, like, if you need me for the next hour, like, you're basically not going to be able to reach me. And then I also I'll either sometimes work later, or I will just make sure that I am like hustling through the rest of the day, again, so that they don't see any negative business impact. And I just think that, like, my execs have always not judged me by the amount of like hours I work. They've always just judged me by what is the impact. So again, there have been times where, like, I've done a speaking engagement and I've missed a really important like message or email, and I've had to like live with that, and I'm at peace with it. And if they're upset, like, that's okay, because again, I just know that for the rest of the day or the next week, like, I'm going to make sure that my work is like amazing. So that's how I view it. And that's how I've been able to kind of do all that I've been able to do in the admin role.
Yeah, I love what you said about, you just make that clear up front in the interview process. So you're not trying to like hide it or anything. You're just like, listen, this is what I do. I'm passionate about these things. And I actually literally, I said pretty much the same thing to my current executive, because I had already started my blog and kind of side stuff before he hired me. And I said, listen, I'm going to be the best assistant you've ever had, but I'm also going to be passionate about kind of building this side project, and but I won't let it affect, my day job. And he's like, all right, let's do this. So yeah, definitely important to communicate. If you're already in the role, I know there's a lot of assistants that are already enrolled and they're wanting to start a new one. Just be aware of your company's policies, be aware of your executives' expectations before you go full on.
Yeah. No, I'm actually like trying to launch something more for assistants, and I actually had to speak to different people, because the thing with Learn What Matters, which was easy, is like it's not geared towards assistants, so it doesn't affect my actual role. It's not like I'm talking about, Google's admin policies or anything, but I'm going to create something for admins in any kind of form, whether it's a podcast, a book, coaching, or anything. I was like, all right, I need to make sure with my manager and like the appropriate people in HR, like it's okay to actually start something like this. So that's what I've been kind of working on, is just making sure that it's, again, per your company policy, definitely want to stay within that. Yeah.
So you said you don't see yourself as retiring as a admin in your career, but what do you love about the role while you're still doing it?
Yeah, so I tell anyone, if I wanted to quit tomorrow or like last year, I could have. And I just don't, because I actually do enjoy the role and what I get out of it and what I can leverage. And the biggest thing for me is really like learning from these executives and observing from them, like how to build great teams. What do people that are at low levels have issues with higher leadership? For me, like all of those like lessons through leadership and teamwork and all that kind of stuff, I'm like taking and soaking in. And then like when I'm building my side hustles, I'm making sure that I hopefully, can be my own type of leader, but not maybe make some of the same mistakes that I've seen some of my leaders make, or other leaders that I've just seen from a distance make. So for me, it's just all about what I'm learning and observing. And I also just love all the people that I get to meet. And some people love that they get to meet like celebrities and high up executives. And for me, it's actually the opposite. Like I love meeting all the drivers and like the people I've met at restaurants and the vendors and actually the people that are not in high positions. I've really made some amazing relationships and learned a lot through them. And so just again, like the people that I get to meet through this role, I'm very grateful for what I've been able to do and who I've been able to meet.
What's it like working at one of the biggest companies in the world?
You know, I always say to people that there's pros and cons to everything, because if I were to say to you, it's the most amazing place ever, I would really be leaving out some of the things, that like some days that are not as great. And if I were to be like, oh, well, Google doesn't have this policy or doesn't do this, like my sister will be like, but you work for Google, like stop complaining. So I try to tell people there are days where I absolutely love it. And then there are days where it makes me absolutely crazy. It's really, but again, I stayed and I would have left if I really didn't like it. There's way more good days than bad days. I'd say the hardest part that I think some people don't realize is just the scale. A lot of times when I'm hiring assistants, I try to just tell them the scale and the pace is going to be something that you probably never experienced before or just at a different level. And sometimes the mistakes you make are going to be a lot more visible to the world than you might think. And you just have to be ready for that. And just a quick example is my team in ads. When I was on the team 3 years ago, there was some kind of major project that was going on with Apple, and I had to schedule meetings, and like these people on the team would be like, this meeting could, like, if you don't schedule this meeting, they'd be like, you can lose Google like $2 billion. I'd be like, what? And some people, like, to me, I'm just like, okay, great. But some other people really I've seen like fold under that pressure of potentially, like, if you just miss an email or like you put one wrong person, some people like don't want to deal with that. It gives them too much anxiety, and that's totally fine. But I'd say that's an aspect of sometimes working at Google that people don't realize. They think it's like, oh, but you still get all of the perks and you still get all these things. And like, yes, and I'm incredibly grateful for those. But sometimes the pace and scale are a lot to handle if you're not ready for it.
Yeah, that makes sense. That's I've heard that from other assistants I've interviewed in Amazon or LinkedIn or whatever. Just like those large scale companies, they definitely move, especially the tech companies, move at a different pace than a lot of other companies.
Yeah, for sure.
So tell us about the book you're working on. You mentioned a little bit about working on project for admins and assistants. What's where's that at, and what are you excited about?
Yeah, so I not too long ago moved to this like place in the mountains in the Bay Area, and I was like, I'm gonna write my like Learn What Matters book. Like I'm gonna write this book. It's gonna be about that. And then when I came here, I just had this like moment where I'm like, okay, that book's still happening, but I feel a greater purpose right now to write a book for admins. And I had this initiative that I wanted to start at Google, and then there was the book. It was like two different things. And then when I started speaking to people, they're like, you got to morph it into both. Like, it's got to be, this should not be just a Google thing. It should be a global thing. And then the book should be part of it. And I'm not going to give away the title or anything just yet, because it has already changed once. But the idea is about how, like, first, just kind of like my story on being an admin and how I have not let the admin role kind of define me, and how other admins kind of discover, leverage, and celebrate who they are outside of being an admin. an assistant, whatever you want to call it, EA, VA, PA, all of the A's, and really trying to help people, again, establish kind of who they are outside of just the role, and how do they leverage the role to really kind of fulfill their purpose and where they want to be in life, whether that's being an EA forever or whether that is at some point transitioning into another role or another role, another company, whatever that is for them.
Well, I definitely look forward to, finding out what the title is and checking the book out. What's something that you would suggest to assistants listening now when it comes to how they can anticipate their executives' needs?
So something that I do a lot of is documenting. Like as soon as I start working with the exec, I start documenting as much as I can. When do I think that they wake up? What do I think that they actually sign on? When do they send me their last emails? And I just try to make a ton of notes, whether it's mental notes, I try to write them down and have them somewhere. And I try to see what they are normally asking me questions on, what they're asking the teams. I also meet with all of my executives. I support 3 executives right now. I meet with all of their leads on, I would say, at least a quarterly basis, if not more, to ask them, what is my executive asking a lot of you? What do you think I could help with? And then I also just ask them, if you could have me have any superpower to read your mind or anticipate something, what would it be? And through all of that, just again, documenting, speaking with other people and just directly asking my exec, I feel that has really helped me be able to, anticipate needs better along my journey.
Yeah, it's great. I think I talk about that a lot, about asking the right questions and asking your executives what's on their mind, because if you want to read their mind, you have to ask them what's on it. So, yeah, it's great. So, all right, so it's been a great interview. My favorite question to ask, I'm going to wrap it up with, is what makes an assistant a leader?
Yes. So I would say not being defined by your job title as an assistant and having the mindset that you're really more than an assistant and moving and then moving and acting like one. I can't tell you how many times I speak to an assistant and they will say something along the lines of this is maybe but I'm just an assistant, or they don't really have the confidence to be able, they don't feel very self-confident to move like a leader. And so I try to tell them all the time, it doesn't matter if you have the title as CEO or assistant, to me, it's really the mindset and not allowing your title to define you.
Love it. Well, Mallory, thanks so much for taking time out of your day to chat with us. Where can we find you online? And then I'll put these links in the show notes as well. But how can we support what you're up to, and where can people find you?
Cool. So I'm on LinkedIn and Facebook just by my name, Mallory Rothstein. And then on Twitter or Instagram, it's @ILearnWithMal. Happy to connect with anyone if they think that they want to connect more. I'm always open to having those conversations with other assistants.
Perfect. Well, thanks again. And we'll talk soon.
Yes. Thank you so much for having me. I really, really appreciate it.
Thanks for listening. I hope you enjoyed our conversation, and you can check out the show notes at leaderassistant.com/92.
Please review on Apple Podcasts. GoBulls.com